Welcome to another writing workshop with the Creative Writing Meetup group, where we write in the real world, but we share in VR in AltspaceVR. You can find more information about how to join us at altvr.com and also discord.me/writingvr. My name is Laurel Van Fossen, and we are here to do one of the workshops that we do every other week in Altspace for our creative writing meetup. Now, we're a really supportive and creative group for writers where we write in the real world and we share in VR. We work to prompts, we do workshops like this, and we'd love to have you join us. We've been doing a series on world building, very important part of writing. And my definition is it's the art of building the virtual world around your story, of how the world around your story, your characters, their different perceptions on the world, how we need to write and keep those things in mind as we write. We have covered the story of a world, the who, what, where, why, and how, geography, the seasons, the weather, demographics, and politics, and society and culture. But I want to dive a little deeper into one area for the society rules, because every society is governed by different ethics and values, social behaviors, social organization, philosophy, religion, education, all these different aspects. And I think it's worth it to take time when you're writing to really explore some of these details, because your characters behave according to these society rules, or they behave in conflict against these society rules. So you need to take all of this into consideration as you're working on your story. Are they going with society, against society, or a little of both? I want to dive into ethics and values for this particular workshop and look at the truth and consequences of decisions based on these value systems that society has. And what are the promises that we make? How do we feel about the promises of ownership and property? Can people be owned, or just physical, tangible products, which we call real property? Can that be owned? Or people, we're talking about slavery. Ownership and property is very complex. Lots of possibilities in there. But think to simple things like contracts and negotiations. What are the rules that these people play by, and what happens when they break them or they go against them? And think of the bonds we make, whether they be bonds of marriage or other promises that are created through legal systems, laws, governance, and life and death decisions, and the ethics and the values. How does the people in your story and the world of your story, how do they feel about life and death decisions? Do they believe in euthanasia? Do they believe that people aren't worth much and they're just disposable? I don't know, but it's something that's worth exploring. Even if you don't exactly use it, these things push and shove your characters around, and your characters are dictated by it. So it's worth exploring in your writing. So in our meetup, we proposed a fictional world, Earth 2020. So it's about present day. And there's a secret community where ant-like aliens and humans live together. And they need to work together to solve the world crisis and prepare the world for integration. Now, we don't know quite what the world crisis is, but we understand that they need to prepare the world for integration. So for us as outsiders, we have to make this stuff up in order to make it work. So I asked the group about manners. You've got these ant-like creatures, and you've got human beings. So how do they greet and introduce each other? And that brought up the whole system of human ants. They just applied human ant, how the hierarchy system, the worker ants and the queen ants and things. People started going in that direction instead of making up a different one, which was just fine. They could have come up with an entirely different society, but they went with the ant as the human style. So maybe the ants were a little more circumspect about how they greeted people, a little more serious, a little more formal, where humans aren't. And that created conflicts. So they had to come together, figure out how they would do that. So think about simple things like, how do you say hello? How do you have a dinner table conversation with two creatures so physically opposed as well as diametrically and socially opposed? And we came up with some great topics about what would be dinner table conversations about how they were going to integrate and how they were going to find peace and communication. And suddenly they drifted up in our hierarchy of the ant system that was being made up, that there are intellectual ants, and they're the ones that actually met with the humans to plan what the future would be. And the worker ants, they didn't have enough brain power to push that through. So already we're starting to mold this fake story. It was fascinating. But think about how your character in your world, what do they talk about at dinner? I mean, do you have the rule of no religion and no politics? I mean, what else is there to talk about? Or maybe that is the subject of conversation. And we looked at life and death decisions. What would shock people in this world, in this community that we were creating? And it was fascinating that many of the people in the group started leaning back towards the ant thing, where workers were fine. They just were sent out and they were grunts and they could be just killed left, right, and sideways. So there was that class system of who is disposable. Who's disposable in your society? In human culture, who of today, our modern real life culture, who's the disposable people in our culture? Something to think about in your culture that you're creating in your story. So humans would be shocked by, according to what we did in our group, by having this disposable creatures, these ants that were the workers that didn't care. They could be just sent out and by the millions and be disposable. So that would shock the humans of this particular little hypothetical world we're building. But what would shock the ant-like creatures? And we found that our sexuality would do it, our willingness to preserve human life, and a little bit of our lack of caring about the natural world. Our consumption. So that was interesting. Have present day problems becoming shocking to the aliens, and how do we find that compromise? So again, we were just playing with a hypothetical world, but I want you to do this to your own story. Really challenge its thinking. Remember, when you're building a world and you're looking at the society rules, we're governed by all these different aspects. And how do they play in your story? What is your character going up against, or what gets in their way that might be part of these ethics and these values? Look at the truth and the consequences of their actions, promises not kept, the laws that influence them and push them around in life and death decisions. I had personally, I'm sitting over on the west coast of the United States, and I have a startup business, and it was impacted by Brexit. So problems that were happening in the UK are affecting my work life. So in our stories, the butterfly that can create a hurricane, the whole mythology of that still happens in your story. So what international problem might be impacting your character locally? So think about that when it comes to the ethics and the values, or anything else in world building. And again, we're going to be diving in a little bit more later on about world building things and really going deep. But I want you to remember, when you're writing your story, it doesn't happen in an isolated bubble. It's influenced by all these energies, these rules, the society, the culture, and the values that are all around. Take some time to explore it so you can make stronger characters and stronger stories. So thank you for joining us for this really quick writing workshop. You can catch up with us in AltspaceVR at altvr.com. And please join us on our Discord channel at discord.me/writingvr, where we write in the real world, but we share in VR. And we'd love to have you come join us.